Issues related to student problem behaviors have been gaining increasing attention as of late in various media outlets. Hi, my name is Mohamad Amir Khair bin Anasir, and I'm going to discuss about the mentioned issues about students with my presentation of my findings for my case study of EDU 550 Educational Psychology with the title of Student Problem Behaviors and Teachers' Responses in the Classroom. Firstly, we can look at the objectives of the study. So, the research objectives are firstly to identify common problem behaviors observed among students in the classroom. Next, to explore teachers' responses and strategies in managing students' problem behaviors. Lastly, to examine factors that influence teachers' responses to students' problem behaviors. Moving on, we can talk about the research gap of this case study, which are limited qualitative insights into teachers' real classroom practices in managing problem behaviors, lack of focus on teachers' decision-making process behind behavioral interventions, and lastly, insufficient context-based understanding of how school support systems influence teacher responses. So, before discussing the findings of my case study, we can take a look at three different articles that I have collected for the usage of literature review. Firstly is from Saha Proga in 2025. One of the clear finding from this article is that clear rules and consistent monitoring reduce classroom misbehavior. And this article supports research objective 2 by identifying effective strategies teachers use to manage problem behaviors, and it aligns with findings on verbal reminders, close monitoring, and relationship-based management. The article number 2 is from Soon in 2015, Teachers' Experiences of Effective Strategies for Managing Classroom Behavior. The key finding from this article is that teachers prefer supportive and guidance-based approaches over punishment. And this article supports research objective 1 and 2 by explaining common classroom behaviors and teacher responses. Lastly, it matches findings on advice, motivation, and instructional engagement. Article number 3 is from Yan, 2021, titled Factors Influencing Teachers' Classroom Behavior and Responses, a systematic review. Key finding from this is that institutional policies and support affect teacher responses. It directly supports research objective 3 on factors influencing teachers' decision making, and it aligns with findings on experience, observation, and school support systems. So, some of the theories that can support classroom behavior management are Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory, which mentioned learning occurs through social interaction between teachers and students. Next is Bandura's social cognitive theory, which mentioned students learn behaviors by observing teachers and peers. And lastly, Piaget's theory of cognitive development, which mentioned students' behavior is influenced by their cognitive and emotional development stage. So, the methodology that were used for this case study is the study adopted a qualitative research design using semi-structured interviews, and the data that was collected through the interviews that was conducted on Google Meet. The data were transcribed with the help of TurboScribe AI, and then we can talk about the samples for the case study. The first sample is Miss Shahira Hanim binti Idris. She was my teacher back in high school in SMK Jalan 4, and she is a veteran teacher with 17 years of teaching experience across 5 different schools and is teaching science. And the next sample is Miss Azilah binti Uthman. She is also a veteran teacher with 18 years of experience across 2 different schools and is teaching geography. And I also studied with her back in 2017 and 2018 in MRSM Kuala Kubu Baru, Selangor. So these are some of the interview questions. The total number of interview questions is 12 from 3 different research questions. Now let's get on with the findings. and we can talk about the similarities and differences in the teacher's responses to the questions. Firstly, both identified similar problem behaviors such as lack of focus, sleeping in class, incomplete work, and disruptive talking. Next, both preferred supportive approaches rather than immediate punitive measures when managing misbehaviors. Moving on, both emphasize the importance of teacher-student relationships in influencing student behavior. Next, both used verbal reminders, advice, monitoring, and counseling as initial strategies. And lastly, both considered students' emotional state and background before deciding on appropriate responses. Moving on, the differences in the responses from the teachers. Number one is that, firstly, teacher number one, Miss Shahira, tries to find help from the disciplinary board for recurring misbehaviors. And on the other hand, Miss Azila, teacher number two, prefers giving advices continuously and believes the students need to take their own initiatives. So the other difference is Miss Shahira focuses on managing behavior within lesson time, whilst Miss Azila considers out-of-class factors such as hostel life and emotional well-being. This might be due to the difference in the type of schools that they teach. Miss Shahira is teaching at a day school, whilst Miss Azila is teaching at a boarding school.
Kan jadi cikgu senang je, cikgu terus bawa pergi jumpa pengetua ke, jumpa cikgu, ingat kan cikgu Yazid kan, cikgu Yazid ke yang garang-garang ni lah. So diorang takut lah. So far student cikgu tak ada yang kurang ajar tu tak ada, Alhamdulillah. Kan jadi cikgu senang je, cikgu
kena
And
nasihat lah.
this
Kena nasihat so
the
nanti pelajar tu
fourth difference
akan sedar dan dia tak akan ulang perkara yang sama lah. So ada pelajar yang sedar, ada pelajar yang berubah. So kita kena keep bagi nasihat, bagi kita kata motivasi, teguran kena sentiasa bagi. So bila kita bagi teguran tu insya-Allah ada yang berubah, ada yang sedar. So bila dia berubah tu dia punya result tu memang akan naik. Kita akan nampak dia punya kesan dia tadi tu. Kena nasihat lah.
So, the findings, data analysis and discussion. So, the findings from research question 1 was about common problem behaviors, and some of the common problem behaviors that were mentioned by the teachers were lack of focus and inattentiveness during lessons, sleeping in class due to fatigue, incomplete or unfinished classwork and homework, and lastly, disruptive talking and peer distraction. For research question 2, teacher strategies in managing problem behaviors, the teachers mentioned using verbal reminders, advice, and clear expectations, monitoring students and adjusting seating or activities, and counseling, guidance, and motivational talk, building positive teacher-student relationships, and lastly, using gradual intervention rather than immediate punishment. For the research question number 3, factors influencing teachers' decision making. Some of the factors are teaching context, the difference between day school versus boarding school environment, students' emotional state, background, and peer influence, and severity and frequency of the behavior, and lastly, impact of behavior on lesson flow and learning time. Next is findings, supporting the findings with evidence from literature and theories. So I have found two sources that can be cited to support the findings of this case study. So firstly is from Ajay in 2025, which stated teachers commonly use supportive classroom management strategies such as verbal reminders, monitoring, and positive teacher-student interactions to manage disruptive behaviors and maintain classroom order. And next is from Kumari and Biswas. Consistent classroom management practices help students understand expectations and reduce repeated disruptive behaviors over time. So, the quote from Kumari and Biswas directly supports what Miss Shahira does with her students, which is she is consistent with the rules that she has set from when she started teaching every class of hers. And yeah, this can help students understand what her expectations and her needs of them. So, conclusion in summary, number one is common classroom misbehaviors were identified across contexts. Number two, teachers prioritized supportive guidance-based strategies over punishment. Number three, behavior management decisions were context-dependent and student-centered. And number four, consistency and teacher-student relationships were key to managing repeated behaviors. The next part of the conclusion is possible future researches. So number one is a larger and more diverse samples, maybe from uh, maybe from private schools and international schools. So number two is that student perspectives on problem behaviors. So maybe we can get a two-way perspective, not only from the teachers but also the students in the classroom. And number three, comparative studies across teaching experience levels, because this can expand the variety of the data collected with uh, novice teachers, experienced teachers, and veteran teachers. Number four is mixed method or observational studies. So some of the methods that can be added to improve the quality of the research is quantitative studies and also observational studies. So maybe we can observe uh, the real issue happening in class. And number five, impact of teacher training on behavior management. So maybe we can find out what impacts that the teachers training carry on in their ways of uh, managing students misbehavior. So lastly, recommendations for teachers. I recommend them to continue using non-punitive strategies such as reminders, counseling, and personal conversations before imposing discipline. Next is identify the causes of problem behaviors. And lastly, be consistent when dealing with repeated misbehaviors. And for parents, they need to monitor students' routines outside school, especially sleep patterns and emotional well-being, communicate regularly with teachers to address ongoing behavioral concerns early, and for education authorities, provide practical training and focus on managing real classroom behavioral problems. And next is reduce teachers' non-teaching workload so they can focus on supporting students' behavior and learning. And lastly, the schools need to strengthen cooperation between subject teachers, homeroom teachers, and counselors when handling behavioral issues. They need to provide support systems that allow teachers to monitor and follow up on students with recurring problems, and they need to encourage a culture that prioritizes guidance and behavior improvement over punishment. So, these are some of the sources that I've used to help help me conduct this case study, and thank you for listening.